My hands were bound tightly behind my back. I felt multiple hands pick me up and begin to carry me. I tried to scream, but something was wrapped tightly around the hood that was covering my face, muffling my cries. The distinct ripping sound it made told me it was duct tape they were using. This made breathing an intense labour through my nose and through the cloth. In the darkness, all I could do was listen and pray that someone in the neighbourhood heard the commotion and was calling for help.
What about the kid?
Leave him. I don't kill non-combatants. I'm not sicko like he is.
I heard the van doors open and I was tossed in unceremoniously to land on my face and stomach.
Get rid of the car and dead body. Pick up your brass. You know the drill. Meet at location Bravo.
I was terrified, yet relieved, when I heard the van doors close. At least Daniel was being left behind. And hopefully, he would be okay if he made it to the hospital.
Take that shit off her head before she suffocates.
I felt a sharp prick of a needle in my shoulder and quickly fell into unconsciousness. When I woke back up, I immediately noticed a few changes in my predicament. First off, I still had the blinding hood over my head, but I could breathe better, and I could see a bit of light coming through the cloth. Secondly, I was stripped to my bra and underwear and was freezing, goosebumps running all down my body. Finally, I could feel I was restrained to an even colder metal table. My feet were angled towards the ground and tied together tightly. My hands restrained high above my head and separated like I was making a Y gesture with my body. I felt helpless and embarrassed and scared. But most of all, I knew these were the feelings these sickos wanted me to feel. So I felt anger. A burning, hot anger that made me tremble more than the cold and the fear.
The money should be in your team's account within the next 3 to 5 business days. Tell your guys I threw in a little bonus for the truly outstanding work. Also, I know the cleanup was more than expected, and I adjusted the price for the body disposal.
That's great, boss.
Replied a louder, more authoritative voice. It reminded me of one of the men I heard out on the road when I was first snatched up.
SUV is gone, driver's body is gone, house swept clean of evidence. Her computer was fried without her clueless babysitter being none the wiser. Any trace of you should be wiped clean.
Awesome, awesome.
The creepy voice snickered back, barely holding back his excitement.
I knew you guys were worth the high price tag. And the bonus is just a thank you for helping me achieve my dream at long last.
Well, boss man, you can keep my bonus and take off a couple of thousand if you let me have a go with Miss Hollywood over there. I used to watch her bootleg DVD on repeat when I was deployed.
Absolutely not. She is mine. No one touches her but me.
The creepy-voiced man snapped back immediately. The nerd rage came through like boiling venom.
Okay, I was just trying to save you some money. She's all yours, just as ordered. Me and my men will take our leave and leave you two to your fun.
I heard a heavy set of boots walk away, echoing of hard floors and high ceilings. I was left alone in silence, with only the excited breathing of the anxious man, slowly getting closer to me. I could hear his ragged breathing and hard swallowing. I could smell a cologne coming off of him. It was something familiar. Was it Bond number 9? That was my favourite when my ex-husband would wear it. I doubt this was a coincidence. I felt a finger touch my exposed midriff, right below the belly button, and all pretense was over. My entire body tensed up like I'd been touched with an electric wire, and I let out a gasp of disgust.
Oh, so you're awake. Good. We can begin now.
The man ripped the hood off my head. The sudden flood of light made me close my eyes, and for a second, I considered keeping them closed in case he decided to let me go, since I hadn't seen his face yet. This man was obviously an accomplice of Mel's that I didn't know, but I knew this train of thought was stupid. They had obsessed over all of this and committed murder to get me. They were not going to let me go, and if I was going to die, I would die looking them in the eyes. As brave as I tried to be, it still didn't stop the hot tears from racing down my face as I opened my eyes to look at my captor. He was a tall, pale man with sunken features and big green eyes. His hair was a curly white dude fro that looked dyed an unnatural jet black. He wore a crooked smile, along with a $500 purple silk shirt, slacks, and a Rolex on display. To my horror, I also realised the room I was in was a 1-to-1 replica of the kill room in the video game. Black tarped-up walls, white tile floor, and overhead posable light. The scrawny man clicked his tongue and leaned in to wipe a tear away from my eye.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. We have such sights to show you,
He said with the biggest self-congratulatory grin on his face. You're quoting freaking Hellraiser to me? Are you serious? Are you fucking serious? I screamed at his dumb face. His cocky smile disappeared, replaced with surprise and embarrassment. You really are nothing but a nerd-ass loser, aren't you? I spit the words out at him. Speaking of spit, I physically tried to spit on him, but I couldn't get enough saliva to launch the 3 feet to hit him, so I just ended up drooling on myself. Your creepy ass has got to hire actual tough guy mercenaries to kidnap me, because you're too much of a sissy boy to do it yourself. You know, I would kick your goofy-looking ass. I continued my tirade. If I was going to die, he was going to get a piece of my mind. Then you dress up all smooth like you're Christian Grey or something. You're pathetic to me, disgusting, and a sad excuse for... The breath was knocked out of my lungs when my kidnapper punched me full force in the stomach. My hands instinctively pulled painfully against their restraints as I tried to curl in on myself. His narrow face scrunched up in anger, and he let out a small cry of exertion as he hit me again in the ribs. The thud of his fist slamming into me will stay with me forever. My vision blurred around the edges as oxygen refused to enter my lungs. No matter how hard I tried inhaling, panic gripped me as I thought I would suffocate and die, until finally blessed air returned to my lungs and I saw the cruel, satisfied smirk and an evil glint in his green eyes.
You will learn to show me respect, little pet.
He hit me one more time, right in the solar plex, causing me to moan in agony.
We have plenty of time for you to learn. I have waited a long time for this.
For the next hour, he softened me up. I don't really want to go into explicit detail, but I'll skim over his initial interactions with me. He used a small remote in his pants pocket to lower the temperature in the darkroom to the low 40s. He readjusted the overhead light to shine it blindingly into my eyes. And he was quick to punch me in the midsection every time I tried to speak up. And he monologued. Oh God, did he monologue? He told me how much he watched me from afar, how he wanted to get closer to me for years, so he wanted his dark torture game to satiate his desires. But he knew that would never be enough. He knew. He would eventually have to have the real thing. He would have to have me. And now, he had the money and influence to make it possible. It all seemed practiced and rehearsed, like a first-year theatre student giving a solo performance after seeing Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. There are a lot of you see and what if I told you? And, in other words, as he droned on and on, his speech was also filled with dramatic hand flourishes as he spun a dagger playfully around in whimsical circles. He sprouted edgy tropes like, my dark passenger wanted more, and the beast inside me could not be kept bound for long. I wanted to vomit. Maybe I could hit him with the stuff at least. Finally he stopped, hands out to side, dagger in hand, head down like he was taking a bow. The idiot was really leaning into the unhinged villain shtick. My hands were getting numb, and I was shivering as I looked up at his grinning face.
You have permission to speak, my pet. You can ask any question you like, but be mindful of your tone.
I hung there for a while silently, gathering my thoughts and quelling my anger before I opened my mouth to ask, where is Mel? The sly grin on the man's pale face spread into a full-on toothy smile. An evil gleam appeared in his eye and he held up a bony finger to either give me a shh gesture or a one-moment gesture. He turned swiftly and pushed back one of the hanging tarps that stood as one of the kill room's walls and quickly disappeared through it. I heard my captor's footsteps retreat down a long hallway. There was the sound of metal chains and something like a heavy garage door being slid open. I heard the footsteps coming back towards me. but this time, accompanied with a squeaky, grinding sound. I realised I was being a fool wasting my time listening for this crazy man's imminent return. This was my first time alone, my only window to escape, so I began pulling at my restraints. I felt like I could free my legs easily if my hands were undone, but they were both held tight, spread out above me on metal rods. It was hard to wiggle around as I realised my waist was buckled to the cold table that held me propped upright, and the blinding light in my eyes made it hard for me to see anything around me. I ran out of time as the tarp wall was pushed back and my captor came backing in, pulling something heavy with him. He grunted as he wheeled whatever it was around for me to see. I squinted through the blinding light above my head, trying to make out the massive frame of something. My captor saw this and quickly darted over to redirect the lamp out of my eyes. He was clearly eager to show me what he had brought me. I gasped in horror. It was Mel. He was bloodied and beaten and naked, slumped over in some sort of makeshift wheelchair. His arms had bloody cords tying them to the armrests, with giant nails through both of his hands, nailing them down. He had 100 cuts all over his heavily tattooed body, with 2 swollen eyes. His feet dangled limp on the ground, with blood dripping from somewhere off of them. I didn't understand. My mind cracked. I screamed at the sight in utter confusion and terror. My pencil-framed captor responded back with his own devious laughter. A laughter deep from his belly. Truly, this was the reaction he wanted from me all along. Why? Why the fuck did you kill him? The pale man jumped over to me with amazing quickness to grab me under my chin to yank it roughly up to face him. His stinking breath hit me as he hissed at me through gritted teeth. His face only an inch away from mine.
I share you with no one!
The creep spun me around and darted back to Mel. With a flash, the knife was back in his hand and he jammed it into Mel's left shoulder, causing the sickening sound of metal thudding into meat. Mel sprung to life and screamed so loud my ears popped. His eyes bulged and he pulled at his restraints. Mel shook the makeshift chair and kicked his bloody feet to smear the white tiles underneath.
That's quite enough, Mel, my boy.
The pale-faced captor spoke in his cracked voice. He reached into his pocket and produced a syringe to stick into Mel's thick neck. Mel's screams instantly tampered off, and his eyes rolled into the back of his head. I didn't know what was going on, but I was glad of the small mercy of Mel losing consciousness and escaping the pain temporarily. But my stomach twisted in knots at the thought of this man doing the same thing to me.
Your Mel was never part of this. I just needed a red herring. Someone close to you that was easily manipulated. Someone with past trauma and a history of violence.
The creeper said, running his finger along Mel's tribal tattoo playfully. But, I started saying with trepidation, wary of an incoming blow. He shot Tony and ran. I realised no blows were coming from my captor. I guess he wanted me to ask questions. He'd been acting so weird that day. How was he not part of this?
I know, right?
My captor said, with forced incredulity, holding his arms out wide as if in non-belief.
I couldn't have planned for better results.
What do you mean? He wasn't working with you?
Well, yes and no. Mel was being used, yes. But when Big Mel shot your other knuckle-dragger employee, that was extracurricular activity on his part. I see you don't fully understand!
The creep almost shouted at me as he sprang forward again to place the tip of the knife under my chin. I squeaked in fright and tried my hardest to recoil from the cold blade and his wild-eyed stare.
For an ex-Special Forces guy, Mel Kilo Kahananui didn't have great home security. My own Spec Ops guys had no problem breaking in and replacing his mood stabilizers with sugar pills. After a month of that, I added some other things than just sugar into his pills. Mostly, I had them add mild hallucinogens, amphetamines, and all sorts of bad stuff that don't react well together. I named the mixture I created the Nasties. Your dear protector was poisoning himself and making himself crazy by taking the medicine he thought was supposed to help keep him sane. The dose of the nasties he took on the day he shot the other bodyguard was the highest dose he had ever taken. My team found him in the nearby park, about to call the cops and turn himself in. Can you believe that? He would have ruined all the fun that very moment. But no!
My captor turned to give a loving smile to the unconscious and bleeding man.
My team intercepted him before he grew a conscience. And I got myself a little practice buddy to sharpen up my skills before I met you.
Who the fuck are you? I asked weakly, only now beginning to realize how outmatched I really was all this time.
Oh, Miss J. You probably suspected me from the very beginning. Occam's razor and all that jazz. I started the game, mapped the boundaries, created the rules, activated the players, and turned a single-player game into a PvP multiplayer arena. I've been with you the whole time like a dungeon master setting up encounters for you to face.
He stomped and held his breath comically, like this was some sort of stand-up routine he was performing. I realized I was supposed to be guessing who he was. Truth was, I didn't fucking care at this point. All of my interest in who he was sucked out of me as I stared at his ugly face as he desperately tried to be funny or edgy. The man that was going to torture and kill me was trying to be funny. I didn't care who he was anymore. He was a sick fuck. He'd always been a sick fuck. Just a sad loser. I said in a monotone voice straight to him. I knew I would pay for my disrespect to his fragile ego. But maybe he would kill me on accident, and I could forego all the hours or days of torture he had planned. His cheerful demeanour was extinguished, and he let out the air he was holding in his lungs in an angry huff. He screamed in my face, spittle moistening my skin.
It was me all along. Herald of the Void, you dumb bitch! It was me! I was playing you from day one!
He came around with a slap so hard that I literally saw stars and tasted blood in my mouth.
I started your nightmare, and I will be here long, long after, when I finally have had enough of you.
Another slap landed.
You will curse the day you ever decided to become an actress. Because that was the day you doomed yourself to fall into my notice and into my hands.
Another strike to my stomach. Something heavy. A knee, maybe?
I'll make sure to keep you for as long as possible. Kinda like your gorilla friend over there. I'll cut off the pieces I don't like. I'll cut out that sassy tongue first. Maybe cut off your hands and feet so I can store you in boxes and take you with me places. Maybe I'll send the pieces I don't want back to your son. A new body part for each new birthday. I'll have to think of something special for his 18th birthday.
He grabbed me by my throat and began to squeeze. My son, his 18th birthday, his whole life without me. This caused a wave of nauseating panic within me. My captor, Herald of the Void, let go of my neck just long enough for me to vomit into his smug face. I would have felt some satisfaction in this if I didn't immediately start to hyperventilate and pass out soon after. It was terrible. I thought I was dying. But the truth was, my ordeal was far from over. I would wake up to Harold setting up more of his torture games for me. Little did I know at the time that I was entering the final stretch of my terrible adventure. The terrible and bloody finale.